Comrades, welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. I am Admiral Andre, and today is an auspicious day, which I say a lot, but in this case I think it really is, because we'll be looking at South Africa's rockets, well, the ones that were built during the late 1980s and early 1990s. So this is interesting because not many people know about this development, and of course its whole link to the nuclear weapons program and the partnership with Israel. It's a very interesting history. You're certainly welcome to go and read more about it if you want. But it's the RSA rocket family. And I have to give full credit here to Paul Putter, who gave this suggestion, this idea, on the Apollo video in a comment there. So thank you for that, fellow South African. I completely agree. This is an excellent idea. So let's have a look at this. What's going to make this interesting is these are all solid fuel rockets. There's no liquid fuel involved here at all. So in this case, it's going to be very difficult for me to actually achieve a good orbit, but we're going to try. At least if we make orbit, that's one thing. That's a success, I think. So first of all, the whole background story, and we'll be looking at the specifications of the rockets. And then I will meet you in the VAB. So let's go. I have to say it's another marathon again, comrades. So brace yourselves. Comrades. So let's have a look at this. It's a whole long story here, but it's very, very interesting. And yes, I think this will make an interesting addition to the Kerbal universe. So let's have a look at this thing. Now, the RSA rocket family, there were 4 of them. I think the last one was not really built yet. It was being planned. And possibly some testing had started on that. We can read more about that in a moment. But so let's have a look. The RSA 1 here, this was the very first one. And basically, it's a good thing for us to be building them right from the very first one because they build on each other. It uses basically the same stages over and over in each successive rocket. It just adds more. So this one here, it says, it is conjectured that this designation was assigned to an intermediate range single stage ballistic missile consisting of the first stage of the RSA-3. So that was the one that actually flew later. Purported mission was to strike Cuban military concentrations from mobile launches on South African territory. The rocket motor closely followed the design of the Israeli Jericho 2 first stage. Now, that's again a reminder of how this whole project was tied up into the whole military thing during the 1980s in apartheid South Africa and all of that. But later in the sort of development of this rocket family, it did switch more to a civilian goal, but of course that was never really fulfilled. But now, very interesting here, we can see this is derived basically from the Israeli Jericho missile. Now, somewhere I saw that here, the Shavit. The Israelis, of course, and South Africans had a lot of development projects together in the 1970s and 80s. One of them was this missile project, but another was, of course, the nuclear project, and that one was actually successful. Now, in this case, the RSA rocket family is basically derived from the Israeli Jericho rocket, but it's also related to the Shavit, which is the Israeli derivative from the Jericho. Now, it says it somewhere down here. The development of Shavit began in 1982 as 3-stage solid propellant launcher, just like the RSA-3, but its payload was a little less, 250, and that's because the Israeli rockets, of course, have to launch retrograde to not cover other countries in the region, and there we see retrograde in over the Mediterranean. But now, if we have a look somewhere, it does say the RSA series. The Jericho 2 missile Shavit SLV, so it's really the same family there, was also a licensed produced in the Republic of South Africa. That's, of course, what the RSA stands for, as a series of space launch vehicles and ballistic missiles. So really it's almost the same thing, but later towards the RSA-4, the RSA family does deviate a little bit from the Shavit. But there it says now the RSA-3 was produced by the Hotech, a discontinued division of Denel Company at Grabouw, 30 kilometers east of Cape Town. Test launches were made from the Overberg test range near Bredasdorp, 200 kilometers east of Cape Town, and Rooiels was where the engine test facilities were located. But then, of course, we get to the late 1980s, early 1990s, and South Africa renounced its nuclear weapons. And of course, because this rocket was tied up with a nuclear project, it was supposed to be a launcher for it ultimately. That changed its focus as well. So we see here development for the RSA-3 actually reached its height in 1992, a year after the nuclear renunciation. And there's, of course, where the civilian shift came, with 50 to 70 companies involved from the public and private sector. But then there was a plan for a much heavier ICBM or space launch vehicle, the RSA-4, with the first stage in the Peacekeeper ICBM class, but with a Jericho 2 RSA-3 upper stage component. And that was only in development, and then that was cancelled as well, I think around 1994. But so this is interesting. If you want to know more about the RSA rocket, you just have to look at the Shavit and the Jericho rocket. So, of course, they're very much linked to the Israeli technology. Now, if we have a look at the RSA-1 again, this is, of course, the whole thing is solid fuel. And there I have to say, I've never been very good with making all solid fuel rockets in KSP. It's a very big challenge. We're never going to get a perfectly circular orbit with this, but that's okay as well. This is actually a good opportunity to improve that skill. Now, of course, barring all this Cuban military stuff, that was, of course, tied up with the war in Angola in the 1980s, where the Cuban forces were helping the Angolan government there, and the South Africans were helping the rebels in Angola. So, yes, this is a solid fuel motor. So we're going to start with this one, comrades. Its payload was 1.5 tons. So it's now very interesting because I'm wondering, if we have a look at the weight of the rest of the stages that follow. So let's ignore that because obviously that will change there. But the thrust, I think, is very important. Now, again, as I always say, in Kerbal Space Program, there is no direct equivalent. It's very difficult to recreate real things because the equivalents in Kerbal tend to be underpowered because obviously the planet is much smaller and the solar system is smaller and so on. So we will not pay too much attention to the mass and so on, but the thrust of 412 is interesting because we'll try to get close to that. I've done an experiment building the RSA-4 and there's a lot of information on it. And I found that the only way for it to work is to actually get relatively close to the thrust of the real thing, which is very interesting and makes sense, of course. Now, this thing had a height of 8 meters and a diameter of 1.3 meters. Now, for us, of course, the closest we get is 1.25 meters, but for all practical purposes, that is essentially the same. So we will be going also for roughly 8 meters length, maybe a little less, just to keep it sort of on the scale there. But we've seen now already with Kerbal Space Program, the length calculations of the craft is not always accurate, so we'll have to keep that in mind. Now, what this payload was, I don't know, but I assume it was supposed to be some kind of explosive there, if it was to strike Cuban military concentrations. Not sure. So it looks orange here. All of them do, actually. If you look at the RSA-4, it also has this orange appearance, but that's just the tanks. It's white on the outside. So if we have a look at some Google image search for RSA-3, we see it's all the white paint or whatever it is on the outside. So we'll keep it like that. But very interesting to see the inside here. Now, what was the time this was supposed to burn? They don't actually tell us. That's the interesting thing now. We'll have to just guess by making the thrust-to-weight ratio relatively low, or at least in the normal range. But then we'll go from there, comrades. The second thing, I have not yet looked for that. Let's see if we find the RSA 2. Astronautics is, of course, the excellent source that gives us all this information. There's no one for the RSA 2. Maybe we should skip the 1 then. Just go straight to the 3. Possibly, since the 1 is anyway a suborbital rocket. And it's part of this anyway. So I think let's start with the 3 then. Or we could still do the 1 and then just skip the 2 as well. But in any case, here is the RSA 3 satellite launcher. Now, I am not actually sure if it managed to successfully put something in orbit, because according to the information here, it doesn't seem like it. But it did do several launches here. Let's just have a look. Because the thing is, I remember that's when I went, what was it now, 2 years ago, to a space exhibition in Johannesburg. That's actually the thing that got me onto what the payload was for this thing. And there they showed the sort of a whole display thing. And this is a photo that I took there. Now, this is GreenSat 1988. There's again HOTEC, a division of Denel, was established to develop a satellite-based reconnaissance system, or spy satellite basically, and we see something there in the background. Now it says here this development included dedicated satellite assembly, integration and test facility, but it doesn't give us more detail on the satellite, so I had a look at that. Satellites for South Africa, I think it's underneath this thing. Here, South African satellites. Now it says here, GreenSat, we see again the similar image, was first developed to, oh good grief, I can't speak today, was the first project to develop a South African Earth observation satellite. The project started in 1985 as a military reconnaissance satellite to be launched on the indigenous RSA 3 rocket, but in 1991 it was changed into the civilian GreenSat. GreenSat would have been around 2.3 meters high with a mass of 330 kilograms, which is the payload capacity of the RSA 3. There it is, 330 kilograms. And would have carried panchromatic and multispectral cameras. The resolution would have been blah blah blah. The RSA 3 rocket was cancelled. As a result, the Russian Start 1 rocket was identified as a replacement. Although engineering models had been built, the project was cancelled in 1994 due to lack of funds. So, as far as I know, this thing was never launched. Sunsat was the first South African, as they say here as well, first satellite built in South Africa to make it into orbit. But it was, of course, launched aboard a Delta II rocket. So, after that, South Africa had no more rocket technology. And it says here on this page, South African Rocket and Space Program. It is a well-known fact that South Africa is a great engineering nation, but the space program of the late 80s and early 90s must surely have been a surprise to even the harshest skeptic. The story of the RSA rockets, okay, you can read all of this. You can see the link there, aessa.org.za. All the elements, blah, 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 blah. The RSA 3 satellite launcher began development 1980s. There's again the 330 kilogram payload into a 41 degree, 212 by 460 kilometer orbit around the Earth. That was the objective again. It says here the launcher was also capable of delivering a nuclear payload, but that's not true, because if we go back to the RSA 3 here, it says also here the goal was to do that. As an ICBM, it is estimated that the 3-stage version of the RSA 3, which is just this thing here, could have delivered a 340 kilogram warhead to Washington, D.C. Now, why you would want to do that, I have no idea, because that will not end well. Or a 400 kilogram warhead on Moscow. I suppose this is for example purposes. You can't attack both superpowers and expect to live. However, such lightweight warheads were beyond declared South African technology. Therefore, the RSA-3 was most likely purely a space launch adaptation of the RSA-2, which we now can't find information about, with the Peacekeeper-class RSA-4 fulfilling the ICBM role, but that was never built, the RSA-4. Now, it also said somewhere else, I think with the RSA-4, which we actually have a lot of information for, even the sort of manual for the thing, or a pamphlet anyway. But it says again somewhere here, ICBM would have been capable of delivering a 700 kilogram warhead anywhere on Earth. But even that, I think, was beyond the capability at the time, because the weapons that South Africa developed in the 1980s were too heavy. And that miniaturization of the nuclear warhead was not something that was achieved yet. So, yes, but we'll ignore all of that. It's just very interesting backstory here. That's not a good idea, but anyway there. So let's have a look. RSA-3 again. So building this one is a good idea because we'll use the first stage and the third stage as is in the RSA-4. We'll just build a new first stage for that one. So it says here, there's all the details that we need. The first stage, empty mass, blah, blah, blah. Thrust was 456 kilonewtons. ISP I won't worry about because we can't change that. Burn time was 52 seconds. Diameter was 1.3 again, and the length was 6.3. So roughly we'll stay in line with that. The span, I assume, includes the fins. Propellant solid, of course. Engine was RSA-3-1 and so on. Then we get to the RSA-2, which had a thrust of 476 kilonewtons, which is even more than the first stage. And it burned for 52 seconds as well. So it's essentially the same thing. It just had a slightly higher thrust. And mass as well, which is interesting. I would think you'd use this for your first stage. But anyway. Length 6.4, so a bit longer there, but same diameter. Payload empty mass includes for the payload shroud. So this is something we'll have to remember. On the second stage, we have to include the payload shroud, in other words, the fairing, the guidance, orientation, and spin-up platform. Now, in our case, we'll use a reaction wheel for that because we'll need it anyway to keep a solid-fueled booster on course and, of course, to be able to control it. And I think this one actually had some control on at least the first stage. The first stage used vanes in the exhaust for steering, after which the fins took over. But now I can't control a solid fuel rocket so precisely that it doesn't need reaction wheels on the later stages, so we will include it on the second stage. Then the third stage is this round tank sort of thing with the nozzle there. We can see it very clearly in this image right there. Then also we can see here the second stage on the top has the fairing base, and that fairing goes over the whole thing. But the third stage has its own fairing, which fits inside the other fairing. And then it has this round base there with a nozzle. Now, making a round tank like that again is impossible for me. So we'll just keep it roughly, you know, like the real thing, as much as we can anyway. So this third stage was also 1.3 meters diameter, a length of 2.6 meters, and it burned for 94 seconds with, okay, ISP doesn't matter. But of course, payload was supposed to be 330 kilograms to orbit. Now, again, whether they actually did succeed in that but kept it secret is another story, because I am quite sure they did launch it. Was ICBM first and second stage. Let's just have a look. Is there no? Well, we just see these examples now in museums and so on. I'm not sure. First launch, but there you see, first launch was 1989. So what they put on it is a different story, because under international law, you have to register whatever it is that you put into space. That's the registration convention. But of course, it doesn't mean they did it, because not every country always does that if they want to keep stuff secret. But that's bad, because it's for collision avoidance and all of that you're supposed to do it. Now, also very interesting thing, speaking of all these treaties and all of that, earlier last year in 2017, I did a course called Space and Society at the University of Cape Town, at the Space Lab specifically. And there, of course, I learned all about the laws that govern space. But one of the things that the professor there, he's actually the South African representative at the UN Committee on, what is it now? UN COPWIS? UN Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. He represents South Africa there, or at least he's part of the team. And he now knows a lot of the space sector in South Africa. And he said also one of the things, this capability here that existed in the 1980s to build this rocket is disappearing very quickly in South Africa, because obviously that generation there was passing away, or whatever the case might be, or getting old, leaving the sector if they're even still in it, or whatever the case might be. But we see that also here somewhere, this thing here, the defenseweb.co.za. Now, this says in 2011 that South Africa plans to launch satellites within the next 15 years. Now, I don't think that's happening, because nothing I've seen suggests that that capability is even really in development yet, in an effort to break into the global satellite launching market. And this thing says here, having a domestic satellite capability is important. And it says something about the past. Now, of course, we just have to find that. Space industry is a big business. That is indeed the case. Around 1988, the South African government initiated a project to develop a low Earth orbit reconnaissance satellite system for the Air Force that resulted in GreenSat. This project was abandoned in 1994, and SA lost valuable technological development and skilled people in this area. Now, basically, that means South Africa has to start from scratch if it wants to build its new launch capability. If that will happen, but one can hope, I suppose. So, yes, that's the point there. It's the loss of the skills there, which is such a pity, because this rocket already existed here. Now, obviously, forget all the nuclear weapons and all of those ridiculous things, but it could have possibly, if they just kept the thing alive, it could have worked still in some fashion. Now, they do say somewhere here that it was not really a commercially viable launch vehicle. Yeah, however, this is now, development continued even after South Africa renounced its nuclear weapons. That's what we read before. In 92, it was the peak of development. However, the launcher was found not to be viable commercially, and so was cancelled in mid-1994. But now, was it really not viable commercially, and how much investigation did they do into that? I'm not sure. To me, it's a tragic loss. Almost, I could say, just like the British Black Arrow rocket, which was abandoned in favor of the American rockets. And yes, I don't know. To me, something like that is such a loss, because there's so many spin-off technologies if you can have a strong engineering base in your country building this stuff. But yes, we'll have a look at that. Now, the RSA 4 is a step up from the RSA 3. Now, they do say here it's again all solid, but it would have doubled the payload, and it's not known if the project reached the point of testing the large motor, which was equivalent to the US Peacekeeper first stage, so it was obviously never built. Now, this thing is a height of 23.5 meters and a diameter of 2.4, which is very good for us, because that almost matches our diameter of 2.5 meters. So we'll be using that diameter for the first stage, which we can see very clearly here again. It has the 2.5 on the first stage, then it has a fairing that goes over the whole thing here, then it has a 1 1.3 meter diameter second and third stage, and then of course it has the payload. So there's a whole story here which you're welcome to read if you want. This you can just Google RSA 4 rocket, but there's again the information about it. So this is what we'll use. So the diameter of 2.4, in our case 2.5, the length of 10.3 meters, and 73 seconds burn time with a thrust in a vacuum. Now, again, we don't have to be too precise here, but a thrust roughly of 1, oh good grief, I'm really losing it today, 1,500 kilonewtons. Then the second stage is basically the first stage of the RSA 3, which burns, of course, for 52 seconds. It was the length of 6.4. If we have a look here again, a length of 6.4. And yes, basically that's it. And then, of course, this includes the upper stage avionic thing. And that's again going to be our reaction wheel. But interesting also, the first stage had of course, the fins, the interstage, and the upper stage constant diameter fairing sleeve, which was jettisoned after the first stage. And that's, of course, to keep the diameter the same on the outside. But if we have a look again at some of the other, you see they did all the calculations here and all of that. So if we just have a look at this again, you can see there, that's the fairing that they're talking about. So once we jettison that, the second stage is, of course, narrower, but it still has the same diameter at the top, which makes for a very interesting looking rocket there. Then the third stage, burn time of 94 seconds, diameter 1.3 again, and a length of 2.6. And let's just have a look. It doesn't say much more here, but it obviously would have fairings again for the rest of the thing, which we can see here again. There's a fairing inside the fairing. But it also had a fourth stage. And the purpose was to raise the orbit and make small orbital adjustments. And that was a reactive control system, in other words, RCS, comprising of hydrazine tanks and 4, let's just ignore the newtons now. 4 thrusters were used for roll control, 4 for pitch and yaw, and 2 for orbit raising, in other words, for prograde burns. Now, there's gyros and all sorts of things, so we'll put another reaction wheel there. And let's just see, a fairing which protects the satellite is made of a honeycomb composite and is jettisoned sideways in 2 halves after stage 2 burnout. So, but this seems to be on the 4th stage. So we'll have to put the last fairings on there, but it has to jettison after the 2nd stage burnout. So I assume before the 3rd stage ignites. Now let's have a look. We can see an image here of that 4th stage right here. It's a very blurry thing and it's the only one I've been able to find, but it is sufficient for us. We see a diagram there as well. So we've got again this round tank on the bottom, but it's really a half round tank. And then it continues all the way in there, I assume. But no, there's the separation thing again. So it's really just the half circular tank with a nozzle on the bottom. Then we, of course, split it off right there, 2.5 meters, but that we might make a bit smaller. Then we get this strange thing on the top here, which has the central tube here. And then it has this ring on the outside with 4 spokes. And then it looks like 4 small RCS tanks on those spokes. And then here you can see the reaction control system. There's 2 pointing that way, and 2 pointing straight out. So same thing there. So that's very interesting. I don't know where the 2 are that fire prograde, but I assume it's underneath 2 of the tanks. We can see something here, a round shape right there. Maybe that's it. So I don't know. We'll have to just improvise there with that. But then, of course, this 3rd stage falls off. Then we just have this ring with a central tube there. And then the final separation decoupler thing right there. So we will put the fairing on the 3rd stage. Now I'm wondering then, this ring here clearly is as wide as the 3rd stage, because this is stage 4 with the 3rd stage. But in our case, it will be more practical to make this ring narrower because the fairing still has to fit over that. As you can see there, the fairing inside there. So yes, we'll have to have a look at that, comrades. So that's basically all I want to show you here. I'll of course keep referring back to this stuff. But there's the various launch trajectories, 55 degrees inclination for the RSA 4. There's how it would have been the ground track, all of that sort of thing. Such a pity. You know, almost all rockets start with a military intention. You could say that even of all rockets in total, you know, the very idea of a rocket. Of course, the first one was the V2, which was inherently based on a military objective. And of course, later on the Atlas boosters, and the R7 was of course the Semyorka ICBM, all of that, but eventually they evolved for peaceful purposes, and that could have been the case here. But anyway, work on the RSA-4 was cancelled in 1994. There was an attempt by Hotech to market it as a launcher for medium Earth orbit satellite constellations, but it was not to be. Now, what does that mean? It was not to be. It was just abandoned without actually looking if it was going to be viable, which is a pity again. Now, its payload, let's just have a look again. Where does it say? The payload was 770 kilograms for the RSA-4. So we'll just have to keep that in mind. Is there anything more that we want to see here? Oh yes, the orbit. Now we saw with the RSA-3, it said somewhere here what the orbit was. I think it was actually one of the other pages. Satellites. Which one was it now? Maybe this one. Somewhere I saw that now. Now of course I can't find it again. 200 and something by whatever the case was. I just want to find that again. Apogee we see there is 210. There, 212, so it actually differs there a little. 212 by 460, that's the goal at least roughly for the RSA-3. But the RSA-4 has a totally different goal. Its apogee is 400 there. But what was the... here it says now. It can lift a satellite, or it could have lifted a satellite with a mass of 550 into a circular orbit at a height of 1400 kilometers. So that's where the medium Earth orbit comes into it. We'll see. Now that's a lot of talk, comrades, but very interesting history here. I suppose not many people outside of South Africa know all of this stuff. Good grief, I've just refreshed the page there, but anyway. So yes, let's see if we can build this, comrades. It would be a very interesting addition to our rocket endeavors. Well, comrades, now that was a mouthful, wasn't it? I think let's, for the sake of it, just build the very first one, the RSA-1. I'll just turn the volume down again, just to help myself concentrate here. Now, of course, in that case, we don't really know what the payload was, or is supposed to be, so we'll just put let's take a small Probodobodine octo, and a reaction wheel. Of course, reaction wheels will be very important here. Then let's take a battery as well. I'm not going to put too much effort into this one because it's not going that far. Now, let's just go back to the stats on that thing, RSA-1, and it is, of course, we'll keep it with the 1.25 meter diameter. It's the 1.3. Then its height is 8, so we'll be, I guess, I'm not going to even calculate this, but just under 8 meters. We don't have to be too precise there. Now on its fins, it has very interesting fins here. I might use those flaps for the wings to do that. Then it has, of course, does it even separate? I don't know if it even separates a payload, to be honest. Of course, I don't see too much information here as I showed you on the RSA-1. Not sure if it has a separation. Let's not even bother with that then. we'll just put a fairing on. So let's do that. And what does it look like? Something like that, I suppose. You can never get that to line up properly there on the very top, but oh well. Actually, no. It has to be a lot longer than that. So let's do that then. Edit the fairing and let's make it just like that, and then so-ish. Now, for the rest of the thing, we'll be using probably... Now again, what's the height here? Is just under 8 meters. Now for this, according to the information we have, this is 3.5 meters. I'm not sure if that's true because of the whole fairing thing. But I suppose this would be the most appropriate booster. No, that's going to definitely be too long. What about this one? Maybe, and then I'll do the same thing that I have in mind for the RSA 3 and 4. We're going to use the structural tubes to sort of create a casing here, because this doesn't look very pretty, I have to say. Then we'll just move that into it. Also allows us to adjust the height here more appropriately. Maybe like that. So we just, of course, have these rings now sticking through, but that does look a bit nicer. Now this gives us 7.2. Maybe we can make the structural tube a bit longer. 7.6. Yes, let's do that. That's it. We'll do no more for this. There's the RSA 1. Now, we of course have these fins now. It's going to be the same thing with the RSA 3, I think. So it angles like this on the top, but then it still has a... I don't think any of these will work. No, it has to have another angle on the bottom as well. That's too big. You know, I'm very tempted to use this. That's how it's supposed to be roughly. Angle on the top, straight down, angle on the bottom. But this is too big, of course. And now not having control is not going to be good here. We do have the slight bit of reaction wheel there. Well, let's not worry too much. Let's just throw another pair on upside down. Oh, that looks awful. Let's not do that. You know, I might just even use these fins just like that. There. Not gonna worry too much. This is an experimental one anyway. And look at the delta V. It's not insignificant. Let's say the fairing is not staged there. And we'll just turn this down. Does it say how long it burned? It does not say that for the RSA 1. And this is not an equivalent, I suppose, of the others. But then again, 412. I've seen that number before. 412. No, it's less kilonewtons than the RSA 3 first or second stage. This is 227, so we need to pick that up to 412, roughly. Now, the one way to do this, and I was going to do this anyway with the RSA 3 and 4, is we're just going to have to put 2 into 1. That's all I can do. That gives us 454 kilonewtons. So, yes, but the tube is at least a bit longer, so of course that gives us a bit more room for fuel, and we won't have the casing of these solid boosters anyway. So this is of course a custom built thing anyway. We just have the parts that we have, so it's just gonna have to fit there. Closest I can make it. Something of that nature. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. So there we have a rocket with 454 kilonewtons. Now again, I don't know if this is now at sea level or in a vacuum, but I won't worry too much. I guess it's the vacuum one, 227. So that's 4, 5. Yes, that's the vacuum information. So it's correct. Now, the height, width, and so on, we get 7.4 tons. The real thing was 12 tons. So we're still lighter than the real thing. but I think this will work. But I am very doubtful if we'll be able to maneuver this thing. I have to put maneuverable fairings on here. I have to. There's no other option. What if we take these winglets? It's still too big. Don't we have a smaller one? The Delta Deluxe will go on the RSA 4. What about if we take the Elevon 3 and then just clip it into the thing? Oh, good grief. Now I can't get the... Is that it? Yes, roughly. At least I'll be able to control it somewhat. Now again, this looks nothing like the real thing, but there we go. So let's launch this thing. I'll call this the RSA-1. Save, and we will see how it performs, comrades. I just want to turn the thrust to weight down. But then again, we'll lose the kilonewtons, and it doesn't tell us how long it's supposed to burn. So we'll leave it at that. Let's go. Now actually, I think it's more appropriate for us to launch in the desert, even though the Overberg test range is not in a desert. It's in the southern hemisphere, and at least there we won't be hitting anything. Now in this case it doesn't matter where we launch, so let's turn on the SAS and fire it into the ocean there. There it goes. Let's... oh, too much on the turn there. That's a very strange behavior. It flips ridiculously and then it comes back to where it was. Okay, never mind this thing. It's too much thrust. That's the problem. We'll just let it behave erratically and then let it crash without hopefully destroying anything. What was I saying about landing in the ocean? Oh well. This is our test bed. Then we'll skip right to the RSA 3. Watch out below. It's sort of drifting there. Bang. And some of the winglets survived, and now they're gone. So we can just go back to the... Actually, I'm going to go to the tracking station just to make sure it's daytime in the desert. Okay, comrades, let's scrap this thing. I just forwarded time a bit, so the desert launch site is in the daytime. Now, I think here... Let's try and build that green sat thing first. Now, I just need to see the images again, and of course my photo as well. So yes, that's very difficult to say. Now, this diameter is supposed to be, I think, 1.25. Doesn't say the diameter, but it says it would have been about 2.3 meters high with a mass of 330 kilos. Just a central tube with some solar panels, but also in a ring of solar panels. Now, the one on the picture is different than that other website. Doesn't matter, it's a hypothetical thing anyway for us. Then it has those solar panels. Let's just build something and see if it will go. Now, 330 is not a lot, so this thing has to be quite small. Let's put a remote guidance unit on. That's already 100 kilos. Oof, no. We'll use the Probedoberdyne, the small one. That's 40 kilos. Now, what on earth could I use for this? What if we use an RCS tank? Of course, empty. That's 120. We'll double that. 200. Put that thing inside because obviously it's empty now. Move this up a little maybe, so they sit more flushly there, but without clipping. Then maybe another one actually. Then we'll put some batteries in here as well. That one image did show it like a gold skin on the outside, so this is, I guess, the closest we can go other than using gold panels. So there's roughly the thing, 280 kilos. Then we throw on some batteries, of course. Let's put 4 of them on. That's 300 kilos. And then, of course, the solar panels. Hopefully this will work. So we'll take the 2x3, 2 of them. That's 335. Kind of, I suppose. Let's see again. Again, this doesn't matter that much. This is just a test payload anyway. Let's drop the bottom. Then put this. Just for my sake, I'll roll it like that. Then move it down a bit so it's more in the middle. Okay. Now, if I look at this, where's that other website again? 3 panels on the bottom. Now, I suppose the cameras would have been on the bottom here, since it was anyway supposed to be an Earth observation thing. Or at least first a spy satellite. But what could we use for that? A circular intake? That's weird, and that doesn't really affect the weight that much. Could I snap something to it though? No, can't attach anything. Unless, of course, we use the old trick. Let's do that. We'll use a circular intake. I know I do have the camera mod thing with the hull cam, but no, we'll not do that. Stock, that's how we roll. Close enough. So put that on there, and there's the observation thing. And now this thing does look, if I look back at my photograph of that poster, it does have these round tanks at the top, but I can't really put tanks on here, then it's going to be too heavy. Maybe empty ones, or roughly empty ones. Now how would this thing maneuver? I can't see. Maybe they would have been RCS systems on the top. Anyway, I'm more interested in the rocket than in the payload right now. 2 like that gives us 460, so if we drop this we can get 342. Now that photo does show like almost like struts on the top. I wonder if anyone else in Kerbal history has ever tried to build the South African rockets. Let's move this up as far as it will go, then move these down a little. No, I don't want it like that. Snap that there, and then move these up again. They must look generally like tanks. Then this, but then of course maybe just another strut there. Then that, and then we'll put like the actual struts on there. Now that photo shows it's like these V shapes. Okay, doesn't matter too much, but maybe we'll make an interesting satellite as a bonus. So that will go roughly there. Now I know they'll, oh, of course the tanks are a bit in the way now. Just give me back the strut here. Maybe we should put it there. 45 degrees. Maybe this thing will end up being heavier than the real thing, but so it will go. Oh, good grief. Why is this still in the way? Really? Is it really still in the way? I'm thinking this is lying. Maybe we'll place the struts first, then we'll move the tanks back. It's always a way to get around limitations like that. 4, like thusly, and then it will, let's say it meets in the middle there roughly again. Then I know it clips there. We'll put them here. Oh, we're back where we started now. Oh well. It's gonna be a good spy satellite. Okay, ish. No, I'm not happy with that. But again, it has to be ish. They don't cross, I think. Just refer back to where I showed you that photo that I took. It does look like just V-shaped struts. They don't cross one another. But actually, it also looks like the one goes up. And then another one will go with a V shape. Why do you still attach to the tanks? Come on, man. You're killing me here. Still it attaches there. It refuses to cooperate. Well, remove the tanks. Now it's forced to cooperate. Now again, this crosses the thing again. No, it's not what I want. Let's put it here. Oh, something like that. Doesn't matter too much. Now let's put the two tanks back on the top. And maybe some kind of an RCS thing. Now this is already 700 kilograms, which is too much. See, we do need some monopropellant if we are to actually maneuver this thing. Or we'll just make it simple. All that work for nothing. Oh well. Just get rid of all of that. Give me this, put it on the top, throw a tiny bit of monopropellant in the one tank, that gives us 474 or 374, and we will put tiny little monopropellant things on here. Okay, the goal was not to recreate this satellite which never flew, I think never flew, but we might as well. There, now we can spy on everyone. Again, it's too much weight. How can these things weigh so much? Okay, leave the RCS system. But it has no reaction wheel, does it? Why do I do this? There's no reaction wheel, which will add even more weight. 424. Oh well, let's go with that. In Kerbal, it's usually overkill anyway. So there's our spy satellite, comrades, for whatever good it will do. Let's just move this back in a bit so we can put the fairings nice and close onto it. Oh well. So we have no batteries again. Oh, come on. Just put 2 batteries on. 434. That's a nice number, I think. There. Finish. Move this thing up. Let's begin building the rocket. So now we need that 3rd stage. No, well, let's just go back. Now, as far as I can see, the RSA 3 did not have a 4th stage. So how this thing is going to go into orbit, I have no idea. But anyway, we saw that roundish tank on the top. So this thing is supposed to also now have like a payload. Or a shroud. Well, we'll improvise, comrades. So let's put a... Oh dear, now I can't see what's happening in there. Can I move that far enough back? No. So we'll need another strut. Even... just exit it out. Do that. Come on. Don't want it to show through the thing though. Oh, good grief. Now we have to do that again. It doesn't want to snap even to that. Well, it's the joy of building it, I guess. Let's just get it roughly there again, and then Alt left click onto that. See, that's what I wanted to avoid. Don't want to show it there, but tough luck, I guess. Can I select it? Probably not. Okay, there's the payload thing now. Okay, so we need a shroud of some kind to protect this. So we will take the small one. Obviously, it's the only one that would work, really. Now, it's not going to work to put it flat like that. Can't even put it like that. It's going to stick out too far now. Because I put the panels. This satellite is giving me too much trouble. Honestly. Too much trouble. There. More or less. Now we can at least hopefully put the shroud on closer. And something of that nature. Let's just see again. So it has a section and then about the same length. More or less, more or less. Let's just see if we can build the upper stage. Now I have to say I've already experimented with this. I've built both an RSA 3 and an RSA 4 just to see what would be necessary. And on the very last stage, of course, solid fuel. This is the smallest solid fuel booster that we have. Now it's... Okay, this is now going to give us the whole thing's length. But if we look at that 5.5 and that's 3.9, so that's 1.6 meters long, if this thing is correct then. And the RSA 3 upper stage was supposed to be 2.6 meters long, so I guess it's more or less 1.6, 2.6, but then we still have the fairing there. And the decoupler as well. The payload, of course, we don't count, and I guess the shroud we also don't count. So just this thing here. But then I guess it's just easiest to leave it like this. We could possibly... There's no way to put a nice round thing there. If we did that, we'd have to use the aerodynamic nose cone and then possibly separatrons. One separatron gives us 18 kilonewtons. And the RSA third stage is supposed to have 58, and it's supposed to burn for 94 seconds. Now, can we get a separatron to burn for 94 seconds? No, we can't. Oh, we can maybe. Now, 94 is what? That's 1 minute and 34 seconds. Okay, that's the closest I think I can make it, 1 minute 31 seconds. But now, will it be possible? That's the other question. That's 8 of them. It gives us 7 kilonewtons. Still far from the almost 60 that we will need. It might just be simpler to use this. Again, sometimes in Kerbal we have to make sacrifices, but I want to use again the structural tube just to make it look a little nicer on the outside. About that length. Now this gives us a thrust of 192 kilonewtons, but now it burns out too quickly still. So again, going for 1 minute and 34 seconds. Barely can breathe here. I had it almost there. Oh, come on. There, 1 minute 33.1. That's the closest. Almost right. That gives us a thrust of 18 kilonewtons, which is not again what we want. So I'm going to do that trick again of putting 2 of them in here. That gives us 36. What's 3 of them? 54. What do we need? 58. We'll put 3 of them in. Of course, they could custom make the fuel and all of that. Stuff I can't do, so we have to do it this way. I know it's a dirty trick, comrades, but this situation does call for it. Then I guess we have sort of a half circle shape there, but this does look quite awful, but that's as close as I can make it to get the specifications right there. Now that gives us the upper stage, and what do we need now? The second stage is the same diameter, of course. It's about 6.4 meters long, and empty mass includes the payload shroud. So hold on now, if I go back to the graph thing there. No, there's definitely 2 shrouds, one inside the other. Interesting. But we clearly see it there again. There's 2 nose cones inside one another. So anyway, we'll need another one then to go over the whole thing. But first, of course, we need a decoupler. So let's start with the simple things. I think that's the right one. Of course, now we have this gap here. Filling that up is going to be very difficult there. But then again, we do have the payload thing again. Now, getting this thing to cover that is a bit weird. Because now, of course, it thinks it's clipping, so I have to go quite high up here. Now, I don't want you to close the fairing. Strange, so it sort of attaches to the other fairing. Maybe that's for the best. Now, the next thing that we need is the spin up or guidance, orientation and all of that. So let's put the RCS, or not the RCS, the reaction wheel thing in there. No. This is where the problem comes in. We've got 3 of these as well. I only want 1. And the same, of course, with this. Something to keep in mind. Now again, the height now becomes difficult to judge. That's why when I built my example one, I built it from the bottom up. But now this is 6.4 meters, and that of course includes all the stuff we now added. Maybe we should do that again. You'll see I already have one here in the sub-assemblies. Like that. Anyway, let's save this again. RSA 3. Actually, I'm going to say -3 because I've already got an RSA 3 that I built now for my test. So save it. Now I'm going to say new. We just want to get the length more or less right. So I'll put a small thing on there again, and then we'll grab the sub-assembly. Now I think this was actually the RSA 4 one. Now if I go with RSA 3 stage 2, the length is 6.4 meters, and the span of course is, or the diameter is 1.3, now in our case 1.25. The height is 6.7. What's the height that we need? 6.4. So we're actually almost there, and that now includes this little thing here. What if we make this a bit shorter? That's 6.1 now. But we still have that fairing on the other one. So I think this is right now. 6.1. So I will take this and save it here as RSA 3.2. Then we'll open up our rocket that we've built already. If I can find it. RSA 3, no, yes, that's the right one. There's the one that I built for the test. So with that said, let me just think here now. Now actually we have to get rid of this thing. since the subassembly has that. Also, we have to get rid of the decoupler there. So that's more or less the right length for the second stage. And that actually does look quite nice there, I have to say. So after that, of course, we get the first stage. But before we do that, of course, we have to build this thing together here. It's no point that I pre-build it and then just show it to you. So this thing has one hammer in it, I think. Let's just go now back to the stats for this. We need the burn time to be 52 seconds and the thrust to be 476. So that's not quite right. The length of time we can see I already have 52.7 and we need 52. We just need the thrust to be 476 kilonewtons. So I think in that case I did have more than one. 408. 476. Yes, because the next step up will be 6 times symmetry and that will be too much. So we'll use 4 of them. So again, we'll fill this whole tube up with this stuff. We'll custom build it. Like that. So there is our RSA second stage. The question is now, actually if I just go back to the subassembly we had, I think the bottom was a bit further down. Actually, no, that line is just where the thing ends. How did I do that? I think that's just one of them though. That's where the difference comes in. Let's get rid of this junk. Let's just try and make it look... Oh, come on. I just want the subassembly menu gone. I don't want this showing here. That's another reason to have the structural tube. I think I've got it messed up now. Oh, come on. Let's try again. There, that's what I want again. Let's do it like that. Again, the length is not too strict, but we know it's more or less in line. So that gives us 408 kilonewtons for 52 seconds with of course, the guidance and all of that, which we will take to be the reaction wheel there. Now, the last stage, or the first one actually, is... of course, we'll need the decoupler. Now that is 6.3 meters, so it's a bit shorter than that one. And it burns for 52 seconds again, and it has 456 kilonewtons. Now again, we saw this is about the closest we could get it. So we'll basically just duplicate this thing, but without the reaction wheel. And then we'll add a... Oh no, come on. Anyway, I did what I needed to do. Then we'll just add a bit of length to the tube. Let's just have to do 1 times symmetry here. I have to keep an eye on the torque as well, because we only attach to one of the 4 there. So let's add a bit of length to this. And given that we know that was about 6.4 meters, actually it's shorter than that. 6.4 to 6.3, but now that's such a small change, we can't really do that effectively. But of course we have the lack of those things there. So I think adding one basically brings us back to where we were. But a little bit shorter because we don't have the decoupler, or actually the top of the fairing there. Yes, so this is the right thing. Of course it looks a bit weird with this gap in here now again, but so it be. Now, this has to burn for, again, 52, but will we have enough thrust to wait? Let's just find out here. Put that on that stage. So that gives us not enough. How about we add a thumper? Thumper is too long. Maybe we'll have to go 6 times symmetry for this. But it's so funny because the first stage has less thrust than the second stage. But now we can't take off with that. I'll do a test anyway, but I don't think we're going anywhere. But now let's look at the fins. That's the last thing we need for the RSA 3. Now it also has those slanted ones, and then recreating that is difficult. But maybe using these elevons now in their normal position won't be so bad because the rocket is a bit longer. It's still too long, of course. That's not quite what I want, but sometimes we have to make a balance. I think we'll leave it at that. At least for now. Let's do the test because this is not going to work anyway. So let's go to the desert, comrades. I'll save this, but we'll have to rebuild the first stage because our thrust to weight is too low. But let's see if we can take off, or at least move a little bit. Desert launch site. So here we are, comrades, at the desert launch site. Now, can this thing go? Let's find out. No, well, it actually can. So maybe that thrust to weight ratio is not quite accurate there. Well, let's see how this thing goes. Of course, I can't move it now. It's going too slowly still. There is a rocket going. Let's see what happens. So 52 seconds before burnout. Then another 52. And then 90. What was it? 94? Don't know if we'll make it to orbit. This is a very risky proposition. Actually, that extra weight on the payload might make all the difference. No. And I should strut the thing. Auto strut it. It's wobbling. But for a first test, it doesn't really matter. We just need to see what this thing can do, and it needs to go. No. That's why we need a bit of control here. It doesn't matter if we're on the 90, but that little bit of extra velocity from the rotation of the planet is actually going to make all the difference. So let's see if we are on a path to success. I doubt it. Even a very low orbit will be an achievement, I think. 17 seconds. That's why I think maybe the payload will have to have some sort of fuel to get into an orbit. Dump that and ignite again. Only 1.4 kilometers left. It's not going to be enough. And it's quiet because it's such a low thrust. We can barely hear it. So this thing was supposed to deliver a nuclear warhead to wherever, as we saw there, 340 to Washington, D.C. But that would never have happened, because how would that have gone unpunished? That would have been the end of South Africa. But I suppose really, as with all nuclear weapons, it was really just supposed to be a deterrent. Because by the late 1980s, the apartheid regime was very much afraid for its existence, and that would have been at least a deterrent for outside invaders. Who knows? Whole different story that. Almost gonna have burnout in 15 seconds. But still, I wish we had that launch vehicle. I bet you because of the growth in the space sector, it could have been commercially viable at some point. And bang, it's all out. Comrades, we didn't even escape the atmosphere, but it was a generally good trajectory here. It was just not enough. About 1.6 kilometers. It's gonna rip our panels off probably. Our spy satellite never got to spy. Let's look at the ground and see if we can see something. What's happening there in Washington, D.C.? Oh, that's not Washington, D.C. So yes, this thing is very much, I don't know if I can make this work. Even my test variant, I couldn't make it work. Couldn't put something into orbit. But with the RSA 4, I could do that. It all comes down to the payload, I think. But anyway, let's revert back to the VAB. You know, maybe we could make it work if we added more boosters to the first stage. I know it's supposed to have less kilonewtons than the second stage, but for practical purposes, that's not a good idea. For us at least. So we'll say 6 then. That gives us 600 kilonewtons. Again, that's more than the real thing, but as we clearly saw, I couldn't get the thing into an orbit. Now the torque is a bit much here, 6.59. I think what I'll have to do is move it's because of all the 4 times symmetry of the attachment points and all of that. So I'll have to move the column here. No, I don't want to take it. I want to move it. And still the thrust to weight is not enough according to this. Lies, comrades. Now let's move this a little. Let's see where it... Okay, it's going more. So it has to be on this axis. 0.63. It's slightly offset. It looks ugly, but maybe I should instead do it with a attachment thing, decoupler there. .61. That's okay, and that doesn't look as bad. So maybe we could make this thing work. I'm just really not happy with the fins. Obviously, I would also have liked to close this thing up here. I'm wondering if it is possible. You know me, I like to tweak until I'm happy. Let's use a smaller decoupler, put it inside that. Now, of course, remember we've got 4 times symmetry there. That's why we see it a little bit there. So, actually what I want to do is take this, but make it a bit longer. This extra length will be to cover up the nozzle. Now it might not... Oh. Why do you do that? Sometimes this stuff doesn't like to be moved, but I know we can move the decoupler a little bit. Because it's hollow there, so this gives us wrong information. Still too much torque. Now this is definitely gonna hit the side there, you can see. We could put another fairing there. Maybe I'll do that. So we'll take the length away here, and then we'll take more length away, because we still have to leave a gap for the base of the fairing. Put that on there, and then attach it to the top there. As close as possible, just like that, I guess. And put that there. So I think that's decent, at least. Looks a bit better. So now we need to fix this fin problem. How do we do that? You see, the fin should be small like that, but Maybe we'll just overlap them. Now, just go back to the image. It's basically in line with the bottom. So what I would want to do is roll this thing so the bottom is at an angle. Move this thing up so the base attaches to the base there. Move it in so there's no gap on the top. Then put another one in place on top of that, but we move it the opposite way. Probably not gonna work, but maybe. Okay, that creates the outline. I know this is terribly ugly here, but it's got the angle on the top. Actually, that should be straight. But of course, if I straighten it out, it's gonna lose the angle on the bottom. So on the balance, this is the best outcome. So I think that will do. RSA 3, save, comrades. Let's see if we can put our spy satellite into an orbit of any kind without another upper stage. It's a dubious proposition, but maybe. Let's go. So that certainly looks much better, at least aesthetically. We do have these interesting rings on the outside, but still I think that adds a bit of flavor to it. Now let's launch this thing. Let's see if we can get anywhere. I'll do a countdown for this one. Let's do it, shall we do it again from 10? Why not? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ooh. Bad outcomes, comrades. I'll go back and just auto-strut everything. So, comrades, back again. Everything is auto-strutted. Hopefully that solves the problem. Let's see. No countdown this time. Maybe it will blow up again. But let's see. 3, 2, 1. Ew, yes. It doesn't like having so many things clipped in there. So I guess normal struts will have to be our savior, just like with the Saturn 1B. Time to try again, comrades. I put struts from the upper part of the hammers to the bottom of the fairing, so maybe that will be the difference that we're looking for. 3, 2, 1. Yes, you see, if you can't figure it out with auto strut, then the old struts are still useful. So I'm glad they're still there. So let's see if we can get this thing into an orbit. I'm not sure when we should fire the upper stage. Now we know... Oh, don't deviate, don't deviate, don't deviate. Why are you deviating? Are the fins not working? Okay, I guess we're going this way now. That's not good though. Why did it do that? No, it's a bust. We need bigger fins. We'll just have to use one of the other ones. Oh well, for practical reasons again, comrades. Okay, we just have the AVR8 winglets on, but I have to say they actually are the best. They fulfill all our requirements anyway. I should have used them from the start. Angle on the top, straight on the side, angle on the bottom. I just moved them in a little bit, but that's the best one yet. Let's see if it can be enough though. It's still that offset torque that we have. 3, 2, 1. And our acceleration is still relatively low here, so drifts are difficult to counter. Okay, just keep it generally straight. On the straight and narrow. I see it's going slightly to the left, but it's okay. It's working, comrades. I might put that fairing there to not deploy, so it just slides out when we ignite the second stage. I think it will look better than having fairing pieces fly all over the place. Now with this, obviously a good trajectory is all the difference, so let's see if that's going to work. almost time to separate. The good thing with knowing when it's going to run out is you can prepare for it. It was a very smooth separation. I think we're still okay. Yay, can we get our Earth observation / spy satellite into orbit? That's the question. 200 kilometer-ish orbit, doesn't matter. It's so interesting to be recreating the history of my own country's rocket program. So yes, a very good idea there. Okay, we are turning a lot now, but maybe it's good because we need that horizontal speed. Okay, never mind the heat effects. Dump that, ignite the next stage. Now this must take us all the way there. Can it, is the other question. I don't know. This is where I struggle, comrades, because we're still now in the atmosphere, but now somehow we're both supposed to insert us into an orbit and circularize it, which is semi-impossible because our periaps and apoaps are too low. First of all, let's not go so level. Let's stop right there. And then see, because the apoaps must climb to above the atmosphere, while the periaps does the same. And we're gonna run out soon. Oh dear, well, we really need a fourth stage, but this one didn't have one. "43, come on. Maybe we shouldn't turn so quickly next time." We're gonna make orbit, but we're still gonna be in the atmosphere. That's the problem. And then I don't have more fuel to put us higher once we reach the opposite side. Come on, 58 kilometers. And we've run out. Almost, comrades. We got over 2,000 meters per second. And then basically we burn up in the atmosphere. How can we solve that problem? Maybe we can do it by... I don't know though. Maybe we can do it first of all by decreasing the mass of the payload. Let's try that first. Now I still have to say here, the total mass of the rocket is 42 tons, whereas the real one was gross mass 23 tons. Interesting. And there were 2 launches of the RSA 3. I'm only seeing that part now. So how on earth do you get more thrust out of it but make it lighter? That I can't do in KSP. We only have this kind of fuel for solid rockets. So it just has to be what it has to be. Where are we still lacking with the thrust? The second stage can go up, but then again it's offset by the first stage being overpowered, so we'll say it's more or less right, and that one is also more or less right, but the payload is too heavy, I think. That's really the only place I can think of now. We need to lose about 100 kilos. Let's drop that top tank. 307. That's it. That will suffice. Very small observation satellite, but anyway. Now of course I need to fix this here. Oof, don't pay attention to that clipping there. Okay, let's see, is everything still good? We can make the fairings smaller now as well. Edit. Now of course I can't see where they are. And this one now also has to be edited. This is a struggle. Okay, it'll have to do like that. Let's see what we can do, comrades. Then we'll move on to the RSA 4, which is a much more capable rocket anyway. Now, I want to also say this fairing is not staged, and build it again, and then we just fly right out of it. That's what we're going to do with the RSA 4 anyway. So, save, and let's go again. So exciting. Place your bets, comrades. Are we going to make it to orbit this time? I'm still dubious. Technically we have enough delta V, but the inefficiencies with solid rockets in KSP will probably kill us. But let's see. 3, 2, 1. Just turn to the 90 again and wait for our gravity turn. Those fins are very good though, I have to say. Might use them for the... Now the RSA 4 looks slightly different. Okay, let's begin the turn, but very gently. Keep it there. Prograde, please. I see sometimes it doesn't accept my click. If I say prograde, it doesn't do it. Okay, this one goes quite straight up, but at least it's not going to fall back onto the pad. We are slightly moving away. No, don't do these mad gyrations. Kick it. So at least that fairing worked well. Now, the thing is, when do we turn more aggressively? We need horizontal speed, but we also need vertical speed. It might come down to something as simple as just turning at the right nanosecond. But let's go as high as possible now. So 30, 32, 34... 40, 50, okay, that's better, that's healthier, but now we need to turn. Too much aerodynamic resistance though. Can we do it? Can we do it with the rest? Now I'm not going to do anything until we get above the atmosphere. Or then again, we know the burn time is 94 seconds. So at 47 seconds before apoapse, I'll ignite the upper stage engine. We can also get rid of the fairing. More weight that we don't need. Okay. That's not going to be enough. 1.6 kilometers plus whatever we still have left. Okay, keep it locked to prograde. 47 seconds, almost there. Maybe I should wait a little longer because we'll be accelerating, of course, during the time. So I'll wait till about 40 seconds. No, we'll have about 2.2 kilometers though. Just wait till we're out, do it. Now our time to apoapse is slowing a little, which is good. Can we do it though? Can we do it? I don't care if it's a low orbit. I want an orbit for my observation satellite. Re-entry in 84 seconds. Come on, South Africa can into space. Come on. What did they launch on those RSA 3 launches? The two of them. See, you can't convince me that they didn't try to sneak a little payload onto the second one, maybe. Who knows? Someone does, but oh well. 50, 22. Come on, 900 meters left. It's gonna end up where it was before. Maybe. Maybe a bit better because we don't have air resistance right now. Okay, lock to prograde or lock to 1 point. Don't want to follow the prograde if we're starting to go beyond the horizon. Come on! We will be over 2 kilometers again. I think 2.1 something. Come on, we still have 300 kilometers to burn away of the periapse. Please. Okay, we do want to get as close to prograde as possible. Oh no! Come on, 100 left! Come on, 20! Oof. We could have done it, comrades. Negative 63. Good grief, almost there. Maybe if we did have a bit more turn during the ascent. I'm gonna revert, let's try it again. Right, so again, I have to turn quicker. 3, 2, 1, there we go. Keep it on the straight for now because we have too little acceleration. Keep it as close to 90 because I need that assistance from the rotation of the planet. Now when do we turn? Once we get to about 80 maybe. The faster we go, the harder it is to turn. That's the downside. Okay, lock to prograde. A bit more maybe. That's too much. Okay, stop moving. The less time we are on our prograde, the less delta V we will have. This is too much. It's too much turn, I think. Too much turn. We're turning too quickly. Turn is good, but I need us to be above the atmosphere. At least by the time I activate the third stage. I'm gonna lock us once we get to 45. Now, of course, I have to be careful of flipping here. And it's pulling us down anyway. And it's not efficient. Oh, good grief. Can it work? It can work. We could see there we were so close. We were within, what, 80 kilometers? Or no, okay. 160 kilometers on the periapse that we still had to burn to get into orbit. Maybe another 100 or 200 meters of delta V. Do that. Definitely not. No, it's a waste of time. Let's go back. So, less turn. 3, 2, 1. Okay, we're just getting us aligned up with the 90 there. So what do we want? Maybe we want to do a smaller turn earlier. You know, just sort of suggest to it that it might want to think about turning, and then we lock it. Let's see, now I'm not going to fiddle with it. If it's not exactly on the 90, too bad. Okay, that's more like it, I think. So we turned a few degrees by 80 meters per second. But the question is, will it be the right amount? We do need to be above the atmosphere by the third stage ignition. I think, anyway. Yes, better, I think. Maybe. This is dubious prospect, I'm afraid. I think it's slightly better. We're now at 45 degrees at about 15 kilometers or 14. Slightly better than before, but not enough. We need that apoapse to be pushed higher, much higher. Lock it if you can. Come on. Burn you. More fuel. Now it's slowing us down again. Ay. What if I just wait a little bit again? Now, it's not going to work because I can't raise both the apoapse and periapse by that much in one burn. No. Maybe we'll be in a, I don't know, can't even say we'll be in a sort of suborbital thing where at least it's above the atmosphere on the one side but below on the other. I'd be even happy with that, comrades. Let the thing at least fly around a little in space. Let us observe our enemies, the Earth, you know? Earth observation. Come on. 1.1 kilometers left. Now the heat, of course. Passing apoapse in 1 second. It's a fail. It's a fail. This rocket is not as good as it should be. It's definitely going to semi-burn up in the atmosphere. We're getting closer with the speed, but not the altitude. Pushing apoapse out again. And it's a flop. Okay, there's other things we can do, comrades. Let's go back to the VAB. Let's give it one more try. Okay, so what can we do? I think we should change the time that the first stage burns. Because by doing that, again, we deviate now from the real thing, but of course the whole thing is a deviation. But let's turn the thrust limiter way up. I want this thing to kick us. So now the thrust is much higher, of course, and the burn time is much lower. But maybe it will help. Maybe it's the difference we're looking for without changing the amount of fuel. So let's do the same here. Get us above 1, or no, that's too much. Maybe 1.5. Okay, let's try this. You see, it actually, does it make a difference there? I wonder. Let's see. Now, it shouldn't change our delta V, but it should change the amount of time that we spend in the lower atmosphere. Maybe that's the key. 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3. Yes. Much more acceleration, so we do our turn a bit earlier. Like thusly. And now it keeps kicking us. 200 already. Much more healthy, I think. 300. Yes, we of course turn slower the faster we're going. So 3. Okay, we're stopping there. Interesting. Probably max Q. Picking it back up again. We will see, I guess. 10 kilometers. Let's help it on a little bit. Just pushing it slightly towards the 90. We need that horizontal speed. 2.3 kilometers left. Okay, that's much healthier. 600 by the time we reach 45 degrees. Okay, now push it up. Higher. 42, 3, 4, 5, 6. Go. Oh. Does it really make a difference? I don't know. Does it really matter? Let's just ignite the thing anyway. Last time, comrades. Maybe I'll keep tweaking it a little off camera, see if I can use the exact thing that we have now, but just get that perfect trajectory. Not sure if it will work, but the RSA 4 is anyway the serious contender. That's the thing I want to focus on mostly. even though I've spent so much time on this. But I assume if you're watching this, you enjoy this sort of experimentation and testing and all of that. Okay, we are higher up now, which is good. We won't get as much heat or air resistance. 900 left. It gives us again just over 2 kilometers. Absolute silence. Where's my Earth observation satellite? Well, it started out as a spy satellite, but it would have been a civilian commercial type of thing. Okay, we're gonna... Okay, yes, come on. 200 left, yes, we're gonna do it. We're above that on the Apple apps, and we're almost there. We're exactly where we were before. Again, minus 60 something. We just don't have enough. I could put another fuel tank on the upper stage. Maybe that will be the answer. Let's just go back to the VAB now. Now, of course, let's just go back to the information on that last stage. 58 kilonewtons. We have 54. Maybe it's enough excuse to add another solid fuel thing. If we're doing it, we might as well try to make it work. What do you say, comrades? Let's try. So we've got 2 there now. We are going to up this to 3. We had 3 already. Okay, up this to 4 then. That gives us 72 now. Now again, of course, you can't fit all of this in here. But obviously, you can tweak the fuel much more in real life. I only have this, so... clip it in there. This thing is supposed to work. Roughly. Okay, make it a bit more like that. Still has the same burn time, but now of course it adds weight for the rest of the stages. The torque is ridiculous now. Now the second stage has the most torque, so let's try and tweak this again. I have to rebuild the fairing again. Try it on the other axis. No, it's not quite right. There. Okay, that's good. Now let's just rebuild the fairing again. And leave it there. Let's put this thing on the ground more or less. And just have a look again at all this stuff. I guess we'll leave the thruster weight this way. Yes, the other one is too little. But then again, since we've added more fuel now, let's try the old way again. So it's 52 seconds, am I right? I think so. 52 and 52 ish. Save. Right, comrades, this will be the last time, whether it works or not. You will of course find this in the Dropbox, and then we'll move on to the RSA 4. A long marathon video, I know, but I do so enjoy making them. So save, and on this one I'm gonna play some music for you. And despite my efforts, we still end up with a periapse of negative 60 something. No, let's give up the RSA 3 as a failure, comrades. The RSA 4 is much better anyway. So I'll keep tweaking this, and if I do eventually get it to work, I'll do another one of those silent movies of mine and just share it with you that way. So there's our spy satellite, another failure. Oh well. Not a save, go back to the VAB. Now in this case, comrades, we are going to get rid of the RSA 3. Of course I'll still upload it, you're welcome to tweak it if you like. So we'll say new. Now in this case, let's start building from the bottom up like I did originally with my test. I'll show you the test that I made, although I've already seen places we can improve it. RSA 4. There it is. Now, of course, I know now that it's not supposed to be orange on the outside, but there it is. So, throw this junk away. We can do better. So, we'll use the Probodobodyne Octo for our placeholder probe core. Now, if I go to the information on the RSA 4, we can see the first stage. If I see where it is here, its thrust is 1520 kilonewtons, so much more than we've seen now before. Its burn time is 73 seconds. Its diameter is 2.4, so in our case 2.5, and its length is 10.3. So for us, I think I actually worked this out earlier. It's 10.78 meters, but roughly. So this of course includes the fins, the interstage, and the upper stage sleeve or constant diameter fairing, which is basically covering the second and third stages. So with that said, we of course first need a decoupler. Now I'm going to use a smaller one. Let's say the one in a 1.25 meter one, because that's what the rest of it will be anyway. Then we add the fairing, but I'm not going to do that yet because the fairing skews our information. We see the height right now is 0.3 meters. Add the fairing and it jumps to 6.5 meters, even with no fairing. So it's very incorrect. So we'll leave that for now. But we see it's about double what that is, and that's 0.3. So this is about, let's say, half a meter in length there, more or less. So we want after that to have the tank now, and of course it's supposed to be a white tank, not an orange one, although it could be, I guess, but we're not going to use that. We'll use this one without fuel. So that's the first part. That gets us up to 4 meters. Then that gets us up to 7.7. That gets us up too much, so less than that. Oh dear. Now that's the question again. We don't get a part that's white, but that length that we want. That's roughly right. That gets us 9.5, but we still have to add that as well. And the nozzles on the bottom. I could go with the RCS tank, but make it white like that. White and grey looks a bit better than the white and black stripes. So that gets us 8.7 meters. Now empty it out, make sure everything is empty, and I just want to move these things a bit closer together. I don't want this black line here. That's a bit better. In this case, is that enough? What are we going to use? We're going to use thumpers because the kickbacks are too long by far, so that's out of the question. It has to be these. Now, obviously the nozzles will still stick out on the bottom, giving us a bit of extra length. But we still need even more though. Of course, we'll still have that as well. What could give us a little bit more? You know, we could even leave this and just use the structural tube. Yes, I think so. Let me just move this. Like that, so it fits nicely there. So this is now, again, this is wrong again. It doesn't matter what it is, it's going to give the same length, 11.4. So we're not going to use that unless we get just an indication of how long the thing is supposed to be. So that's 9.5. 10.4. Let's say that, because then we still have to add the fairing base and the nozzle, so it has to be this long. This helps us much more than this indication. Problem solving, it's a useful thing here in KSP. Let's just see if I compare them. It has to be the medium long. That's the closest I can go. So then we'll throw this stuff on. Now we have to remember again, we are going to try and simulate the figures that we got. So it has to be, what was it, 1520 at 73 seconds. So let's make it 73 seconds first. So that is 1 minute 13.4. That doesn't matter. So that gives us 1,000. So we still need more than that. So we're going to have to go 8 times symmetry. That gives us 1.3. So I think that's it. We can't go much higher than that. I'm not going to put even more in here. 8 is already the max. Otherwise I'll have to put 6 and 6. Maybe we'll have to do that actually. Let's try that. 6 and 6. 30. It's the same thing. How is that possible? 1300. Am I going nuts? Did I just put 4 and 4? Oh, good grief. Hey, that's, well, at least the figures showed me. So 6 and another 6 after that. That gives us 2 kilometers. That's too much. Or 2,000. That's too much. So there's no other way to do this because I can't do 5 times symmetry. Unless we do 8 and then I do 1 and 1 extra. Maybe that will be the best. Let's for the sake of it try and get it roughly right there. Again though, KSP is not real life, so it's not going to give us the same performance even for the same kilonewtons. So that's now 1300, so I'll copy one of them. This is very difficult. It's of course now not going to snap properly. I have to do it without snapping. Then 2 times symmetry. That gives us 1700. That's the closest, comrades. Although it doesn't matter, but we need more, I think, just to make the thing work. Rather more than less. Because now I can't just have 1. I have to have symmetry here, otherwise the thing is going to go crazy. So we have 10 boosters now. 1700. That'll have to do. Thrust to weight already is only 1.28, so we need it. So we'll keep this. Let's just make it look nice. At least as much as possible. Then move this in with F. Okay, that'll do. That's our first stage, comrades. So the next thing, of course, is we still have to add we can ignore this height here. It's because of the structural tube that it's still wrong. But we'll just take this now away. No. That, and then put this back, and then put that back underneath. So it's going all crazy now. This is not 17 meters. It's, again, the fairing is a bit haywire. So that's the first stage. Now I think we'll just save it. Let's just save it. So we will place it over the other one that I built, because this is better, but we still need the fins. So these fins are... There's so much good information on this RSA 4, actually more than the one that they built, the RSA 3. Now this one has clearly the Delta Deluxe winglets, and it goes as flat as the nozzle. So 4, of course. Like that. I think we can move it in a little bit, just so we don't have this edge there. And, well, now it's touching down there. So I suppose a little edge. I know it's a little higher than the nozzle, but it's better just for the clearance from the ground. So there is our first stage of the RSA 4. Now I don't think the Israelis built something exactly like this, so this would have been a South African innovation on the Shavit Jericho thing, if I understand it right. So let's save this. Under the third stage, we'll override that. So there we go. Third stage is done. Now we need the second stage, comrades. And the second stage is easy because it's the first stage of the RSA 3. So let's just confirm that it is. But now we'll rebuild it anyway because we want to make sure the length is more correct there. So the length of this is 6.4 meters, and it's for 1.3 diameter, so we'll go for just over 6 meters, let's say that. So this thing, although what does it have, includes the upper stage avionics, essentially identical to the RSA 3 second stage, not the first stage. I was wrong there. So avionics here would be, of course, our advanced inline stabilizer. Now at this point I think we'll just use another tube again, just makes it easier. I can't change the color, only the length there, just checking there. Now again, that's totally incorrect information, so let's approximate the length with tanks first. So the length is supposed to be 6.4, so we'll just go under that. That's still too short. Still too short. 6.2, that's it. We'll just go that length. So let's throw this thing on and just compare them. Now that thing can't go any higher or longer there. So maybe we'll put another one on. Don't know how structurally sound this will be, but we'll find out. Now let's make it a little shorter because we'll still need the nozzles there. Now again, we will have to use the hammers because the thumpers are now again too long. So hammers, that's what it will be. Now for this we need it to burn for 52 seconds with a thrust in a vacuum of 470 kilonewtons. So first of all, let's get the length of time right. So 52. So that's quite achievable. 52.1, that's almost perfect, and that gives us a thrust of 413 kilonewtons. So we need a little bit more, but if I add 2 more, that's too much. So maybe because the first stage is overpowered a little, we'll make the second one underpowered a little. So on the balance it will be more or less accurate. So we'll take 4 of these and just again get it as nicely as possible. just where it ends there, because we made allowance for the nozzle there. And that is our second stage. That's all we need for this. Now I'm ignoring the height again, because we now have 2 structural tubes, so we know it's not going to be accurate. But we worked out more or less what it should be. So that's it. Put it in the second stage. So take it from there, and second, delete what we had, and that is that. Now, third stage. With that we get this round thing again. Hey. But for this it's like a semi-round thing. So each burn time is 94 seconds again, with a length of 2.6 meters and a kilonewton of 58. So it's the same as the previous one, exactly the same. Now, how on earth am I going to do this? Actually, I'm going to build the fourth stage onto this while I'm at it. So the fourth stage is a tube in the middle, a very small one on the smallest diameter. Actually, hold on. Yes, it has to be, because the ring has to go around it. So we'll take this, but the smallest diameter again, just 1 times symmetry, please. Now, the ring that goes around this, I'm going to use the size 1.5 decoupler, because that's now wider, but it's still narrower than the 2.5 meters, so the fairing is going to fit over here still very nicely. Now, I know this is not what the real thing looked like. It was only a single ring, but this is the closest I can go without going crazy with cubic struts. So we'll take that as our fourth stage framework. Now we have the struts inside this. So snap and 4 times symmetry, and then just move them down. Of course, these are just supposed to be single struts, but I need something to attach the tanks to. Okay, let's get it roughly in line with each other. Maybe I could swap this thing around, because it has these things on the bottom. It looks better like this. Then, is that more or less? Actually, that's pretty accurate there. Okay, there we go. That's it. Now I know it's longer here. That's fine. Doesn't matter. Can't make that smaller anyway. Unless we don't use a tube. But that's also wider. What could we use that's the same diameter but smaller? I suppose we could use that. That would be a little bit better. I have to do the whole thing over. It's fine. Empty it out and then attach this back. 1 times symmetry and move this up again. I hope you're finding this interesting. But anyway, I'm enjoying myself. Now there's no attachment because it's too perfect. Just gonna have to tweak that RSA 3 in the future. Maybe we'll do that in another episode sometime. Or if you can tweak it and share that with me, I'll be very interested to showcase that. So there it is, roughly in line. So now we have this. So put 4 tanks on. Let's hope this is going to still be enough with the mass. I'll just put it on the top, it's easier. And I know it's a bit wider than the cap that we now have, but it'll do. We could put it like that. Yes, let's put it like that. But now it looks weird where the strut clips into the tank. So we'll put it like that, so it looks nice there. Okay, so there is the 4th stage fuel. Now we just need the 4th stage propulsion stuff. So we'll put that 2 times symmetry there. Now that is what it does. Yes, it's on the bottom. It's on the bottom there. Now, so it's too high. So that means there is another ring there. Okay, so then this has to just go out, because then I can attach the others onto that. Now getting that precise is very difficult, so it's a bit of guesswork there. Now let's just see if we can still fit this thing without clipping that nozzle. Yes, we can. Oh, it's a bit of a block there now. Can we move it out a bit? Well, it is clear there. We'll have the same thing here. It's now because I swapped the thing around. Blast. I have to... Oh, it's just me and my stupid perfectionism. At least we fixed that already. So now take this, swap it all around, do it all over again. At least it shouldn't be too much trouble. Okay, now we've done that. So hopefully that will now work better. Of course I have to move it out now. It surely does, and it's still clearly attached there. So there we go, there's the 4th stage with a structural thing in the middle, which is maybe good because we still need to attach the decoupler to it. Let me just select it now if I can. Unfortunately it wants to select the decoupler. So the decoupler on the top is narrower than that, so it's the smallest size. This one. I'll put the force percent for 1, so it doesn't change the orbit of the satellite. Then we'll put this on the bottom, and voila, so there's the 4th stage, comrades. Now we want another decoupler, but this should be about 2 meter diameter. So that's the thing now. Unfortunately, this stuff is now clipping in there. But this thing is very thick, so obviously they would make it smaller than that. I would if I could, so let's try it like this. It's just packed in there. Of course, it shouldn't affect the performance. If it does have a problem decoupling, then I will change that. Now, let me just see. Actually, that's a solid plate there. It's not another ring. Let's use this. So, actually, let's use this decoupler with a bit less force percent. Then use this and then move it up a little bit. Just to under that RCS thing. I know the other one still clips in there, but it's attached. So that does that now. I think that looks a bit more like the real thing. Although we could, instead of having this angle here, use one of the engine plates. Yes. Doesn't matter which way we do that now. And that's of course going to screw up all of our height stuff here. It goes from 0.9 to 4. So let's leave that for last. Now, under that, we have this half-moon tank thing again. I can't do it. I can't do it, comrades. I can't do it. I can't do it. That's anyway the 1.5 or 1.25 meter diameter. So, yes, it is this then. Now, that we're going to have the same problem. Let's just do what we did before. This is just where I have to use a bit of creative license. So we'll take this tube, we'll make it the shortest thing. Oh, good grief. Now we're going to have the same damn problem with the height again. What's the height of the third stage? 2.6 meters, so we have to go a little under that. So let's say just over 2 meters. Now, we include this decoupler now. Anyway, that's less than 1. So it should be less than 3. What does that give us? Less than 3. So that's our length. We just go with that, comrades. So we, of course, still have to add that. Let's go less, because then we still have to add this plate and the nozzles. Now, I can't make a round thing that's this big anyway, so that doesn't leave us much choice. So I'm just going to add the stuff now. We know more or less what the size is. So we... Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. We still need fairings, I think. Yes, there's a fairing stage there. And that's on the 3rd stage. No, 4th stage. So, actually then... What if we take this away? Put a fairing there of this size. Oh, it's a mess. It's a mess. So now it's going to clip right through the RCS. Even, okay, well, it's going to deploy, but still, that's going to look so weird. No, for our sakes, I'm going to put the fairing on the 3rd stage then. So below that, that's just going to be more practical. Now this still has to go 2 meters, am I right? So just have a look at the size. Yes, because the payload maximum diameter was something. Payload with a maximum diameter of 2.2 meters. Of course, the diameter of the bottom stage is 2.4 meters. So that shows us it's still 2.5 for us here, and then we have to keep that with the fairing. Okay, confusing a little bit, but we have our orders now. So with that, actually, then we don't need this plate, because that serves the purpose of the plate then. And then we'll just build the fairing up on top of that. Then we have this there with the smallest flea solid fuel boosters. Now this thing has to burn for, again, 90, let me find that, for 3rd stage, 94 seconds and a 58 kilonewton burn. So roughly, again, that's obviously because it needs to be 94 seconds, so 1 minute 13. That gives us 92. That's too much. We only need 58. 69, we get a little bit of creative license. So that's the closest, I think. Just because we still need the fairings and all of that as well. So there is our 3rd stage. Now, of course, I would like to make it look nice and round here, but I don't have something of that size. That's almost right. Now what's it attaching to? No clue, but we're gonna use it, comrades. It adds now more mass, that's why we need the extra thrust. Okay, wait. Take this away. Move the boosters down. Put this back. Move this up again. And let's play with this now. Obviously I don't want the nozzle clipping there. It adds more length now, comrades. But is it even worth it, honestly? Is it even worth it? It's just an angle, it's not even a round thing anymore. Nah, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. I need something different. But that was the best option. Fairing is just going to be another angle there. No, so we'll stick to that, comrades. Unless another idea pops up, but this is again just an angle. So there's our third stage, and now the payload. They said, what was the payload supposed to be? Payload, was it 700? It said, well, it was supposed to be a 700 kilogram warhead, but the pamphlet information says, obviously that's now for civilian use, a satellite with a mass of 550 into circular orbit at a height of 1400 kilometers. So let's take a dummy mass of 550. So we're going to ignore the Probodobodine. This is too much. That's too much. That's too much. That's 560. So there's our satellite. Such a tiny thing. But we'll see. We'll see. I have another idea with this, but that might have to wait for another episode. So then this thing goes up and then it goes in. So the in is more long than the up. That's completely nonsensical, but it makes sense to me. So there, and then the in is longer than that. Like thusly. Alright, so we've got that, comrades. Now we just built the thing. So we need to save this as the RSA-4. Save, and just put my flag back on, please. So, what's the next step? This thing must not fire. This decoupler is there just as a structural element. Okay, let's put the second stage on. Second. So we'll just need another. I'm not going to bother with the fairing thing. That adds more length, which we didn't account for now. Unless we do account for it to make the thing look a bit nicer. Why not? So we'll say that, no, smaller. With that on top, going there. That actually looks nice. This thing does not stage. That thing does, of course. Then we have this kind of diameter, which we now have to offset by taking the tube a bit shorter. There we go. So we've roughly offset that now. So there's the second stage. So let's just get our order here in the correct sequence. So that thing separates. We will not fire immediately. Maybe we'll get rid of that. I think it says when those fairings pop off there. Jettison sideways in 2 halves after stage 2 burnout. So stage 2 burnout, So before we separate that thing, we have to drop those. Although I might want to swap that around because I don't want to keep this thing attached for too long. So 2 sides in clamshell with quite a bit of force just so it doesn't get stuck anywhere. And now we just put the first stage on. Or third stage here. Just put that. We don't need to cover that with another fairing because the whole thing is going to be covered with another fairing now. Like thusly. Just want to make it attach smoothly there. It's going to go a little bit out, but I can't change that now, unfortunately. Edit it again. You see, it doesn't want to go straight. It does go outwards, you see there, right there. If I place a cross section there, it doesn't want to go. Then it bulges out weirdly. Okay, that's going to have to do. At least for now. We still need to test this thing. So then, shall we change the color here? I don't know what this thing would have looked like because they never built it. But I assume it would have been the same white exterior. Otherwise we could put a stripe on there, but that will look weird. So let's keep it white. Now, lift this whole thing up. Get the first stage into the correct position. Then as soon as, now again, this fairing is not staged. This thing is just going to slide out of it. I don't know what it would have done in real life because it doesn't say. It just says the sleeve is deployed. If I find that. Upper stage constant diameter fairing sleeve, which is jettisoned after first stage. So because they call it a sleeve, I'm just going to keep it on there and then we'll just burn right out of it. So as soon as we get that thing, we fire the second stage, then we fire that, then that, then da. I think that's it. That gives us 4.5 kilometers of delta V. This is probably the most accurate rocket I've ever built. So that's quite appropriate, being a South African thing that they were starting to work on, but I really wish they kept at it. So this thing ought to work, hopefully. Now what we might try, probably in a future episode, because this thing can carry a payload of 500 something kilograms, it's not a jump or a big jump to get to the command pod, which is 840 kilograms. So maybe we can put a Kerbal in space with a South African rocket. Of course, we'll have to have, we don't need a heat shield, but we'll have to have some parachutes and all of that still. But let's test this thing, comrades. And there she is. So I think that looks very spiffy right there. That's a good piece of work, I think. Now, I'll speed this up. Oh no, I won't speed it up, but I'll put music over it again so you don't have to listen to my blabbering the whole time. But let's see if we can make an orbit. Now, I know this was supposed to be 1400 kilometers, but any orbit here will do. At least we do have the upper stage to maneuver with, so that's something. Oh, we have to go back. I still need to put the other engines on there. So we still need the 2 engines for prograde burn on this 4th stage. So I'm just going to put... Am I going to get 2? Yes, I can. I'll put it underneath the tanks. It's going to be easier. Although we could put it there, given what we saw in that picture. Let's do that. This was like another round tank next to the other one. Although it was this way. Like that. And then I'll just maneuver it. Hopefully they won't fall off when we stage. Okay, that does look strange, but there it is. Now what I want with this also is I want them to move by throttle, just so I don't have to hold the thing in the whole time. So RCS actuation 4 by throttle. That's it. Now we're done. Save and go. Okay, comrades, this warrants a proper countdown, I think. So here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Problems, comrades. We have no power. Revert. Let's put a... What did I take? Oh, one of the cameras. Let's just put a battery on here. It's an extra test for the payload capacity. Let's go again. Save. Let's do another proper countdown just because. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Comrades, can you believe it? We made it, but more than that. We are almost at 1400 kilometers, just like we're supposed to be. We overshot a little bit there, but of course the ascent was not as efficient as it should have been. But even if it was, then we'd probably go even further. So at this point, I think we can just get rid of the stage. And I didn't change it too much. Now we just wait till we get to the other side and then we'll see if I have enough monopropellant, probably not, to try and fix that, to circularize that. But even if that's not the case, we made it to orbit, can you believe it? All the development work has paid off. So let's fast forward to Apple apps. And the planet is looking magnificent there. All the way. Let's stop here. GoPro grade RCS since we have no reaction wheels. Don't waste it, don't waste it. And full throttle. I'll just go back to orbital view. So we're burning the hydrazine now, seeing what we can end up with. $16. We should get relatively close, I think. 14. Now, of course, I don't know what this amount of monopropellant should have been. That's a whole other story, but I'm not going to worry about that. 9 units. 8. 7. Well, at least we'll get about halfway, I guess. Yes, over halfway. And there we are, comrades. Separate. There is our dummy payload. Let's just go around. We don't really... Oh, what the... There's my test that I did, the RSA 4. Can you believe... No, that's ours. Then where is the test? I saw something floating around here. Oh well, that's our one, the RSA-4. Well, there's something. It's the same thing. So here we are, comrades. I think that'll do for this episode. It's been a long one, but a fun one. in a future one, we can tweak the RSA-4 to see if we could take one crew capsule to orbit. Maybe that is the next step in the RSA rocket family's development. Obviously, they never got that far. But we can imagine, maybe we can even do an alternate history thing and sort of try and keep developing the thing. But anyway, that's it, comrades. I hope you've enjoyed. And I'll see you next time, probably with a Quant again. Or not a Quant, good grief. The thing is called a Mir, not a Quant. Just because I'm still thinking of our last module. I think the next one is Spectre or... I don't know. Can't remember. I'll have to look it up. But that's for next time, comrades. Have a fantastic day with this magnificent vista in front of you. Thank you for watching, comrades.